In the autumn of 1845, a single British newspaper grows so swollen with railway advertisements that one issue runs to hundreds of pages. The whole country has caught the same fever in the same season. A clergyman in Yorkshire, a shopkeeper in Bristol, three sisters named Brontë in a windswept parsonage on the moors. All of them are pouring their savings into railway shares. And here is the twist that makes the Railway Mania so unnerving. Many of those lines will never carry a single passenger because many of them will never be built at all. This is the story of how the most real, world-changing technology of its age became the vehicle for one of the most ruinous financial bubbles in history, and how a nation learned that the future can be true and the price of it can be a lie at the very same time. To see why sensible people lost their heads, you have to remember how astonishing the early railways truly were. In a single generation, the steam locomotive collapsed distances that had held steady since the Romans. A journey of days became a journey of hours. And the first great lines, Liverpool to Manchester, Stockton to Darlington, were not just marvels. They were money machines, paying their early shareholders handsome, reliable dividends. That was the spark. If a few railways could turn iron and steam into gold, reasoned the investing public, then surely every railway would. The logic felt airtight. Britain was the workshop of the world, its economy booming, interest on safe government bonds low and dull. Into that hunger for return came a technology that was genuinely transforming civilization, and the assumption that transformation and profit were the same thing. Every mania needs a prophet, and this one had George Hudson, the Railway King, a draper's assistant turned tycoon. Hudson stitched small railways into vast networks, became a member of Parliament through legendary parties, and was feted by lords and princes as the man who had built the future. Investors followed him blindly because Hudson's railways paid magnificent dividends. There was only one problem hidden inside the accounts. Some of those dividends were not profits at all. Hudson was quietly paying shareholders out of the company's own capital, handing investors their own money back and calling it earnings. It is one of the oldest tricks in this series, the very engine of a Ponzi scheme, dressed up in Victorian respectability. For now, nobody looked too closely. The dividends were arriving, the shares were rising, and the king could do no wrong. Then the mania went vertical. New railway companies were floated by the hundred, many of them for lines that made no sense, duplicate routes, lines to nowhere, ventures that were really just a printed prospectus and a promise. And crucially, you did not need the full price of a share to play. You could buy in with a small deposit, a call, owing the rest later, which meant a modest sum controlled a large bet. That is leverage, the accelerant in nearly every crash in this series. Parliament, caught in the same enthusiasm, waved through authorizations for thousands of miles of track. Servants speculated alongside their masters. Famous names lent the frenzy respectability. The price of the railway share was no longer tethered to whether the railway would ever earn a shilling. It was tethered only to the certainty that someone else would pay you more for it tomorrow. The reckoning came, as it always does, from the direction no one was watching: the cost of money. In 1845 and 1846, the Bank of England raised interest rates, and suddenly the whole leaning tower trembled. The railway companies, needing cash to actually build their lines, called in the money investors still owed on their shares. Now the bill arrived. Speculators who had put down a small deposit found themselves owing sums many times larger, and to pay they had to sell. But everyone had to sell at once. Prices that had only ever gone up went into free fall through 1847. Fortunes built on paper evaporated in weeks. Middle-class families across Britain were ruined, and George Hudson, the Railway King, was exposed at last. His phantom dividends laid bare, he fell from Parliament and palaces into disgrace and exile, the most celebrated man in Britain undone by his own accounts. But here is where the Railway Mania breaks the pattern of the tulip and the South Sea. When the smoke cleared, something was actually there, unlike a bubble in flower bulbs or shares of a company that traded nothing. The railway boom left behind iron and stone, thousands of miles of real track that would carry Britain, and eventually the world, into the industrial age. The savings of a generation of middle-class investors had been poured into the ground and mostly lost, but what they built endured, and much of it still carries trains today. It is a strange, double-edged legacy. The investors were ruined and the nation was enriched. The bubble was real. The railways were real. Both things were true. The tragedy was that the people who paid for the future rarely got to profit from it. The warning sign of the Railway Mania is the most important one for anyone living through a wave of new technology, and we always are. A real transformative invention and a ruinous financial bubble are not opposites. They arrive together again and again, precisely because the technology is real enough to make the story believable. The railways genuinely were the future, and railway shares genuinely were a trap at the very same moment. So you must learn to hold two questions apart that the crowd always fuses into one. First, is this technology real? And second, entirely separate, is this price sane? Darien answered yes to a dream that wasn't there. The Railway Mania answered yes to a future that was, and still lost everything on the price. Now, that same appetite for the new machine, transplanted to the booming railroads of a young America and fed by an ocean of European credit, would burst on a September morning in 1873, slam the doors of the New York Stock Exchange for the very first time, and drag the entire planet into a depression so long they simply called it great. Tomorrow, a new fortune falls here every day. Subscribe.